And yeah, if there's nothing further, I think from our side or anything from our event side, I would like to introduce you to our panelists, and I'll let them introduce themselves and speak for themselves as well. Okay, thank you. Luncedo, I think you can go first, sir.
Good afternoon, Kanyiso, and good afternoon to my fellow panelists as well as those that have joined online. So my name is Luncedo Njezula. I am the executive manager in the office of the CEO at SALGA. And you did ask us to speak about what this month means. And perhaps I'll deal with that with your permission. When you asked me that, three things came to mind really, and one is reflection. I think that this month allows us the opportunity to reflect on the potential of people within society. The second thing that came to mind was empowerment. I think that this month is a reminder of the importance of empowering the youth through education, leadership, and community involvement. And I think lastly, it's about commitment. We need us to continue to commit to fostering an environment where the youth can thrive, innovate, and shape the future of our country. So yeah, that's what this month means to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luncedo, for your contribution. Karabo, please go ahead. Just kindly introduce yourself to us. And also, as I said, if you can, just give us an idea of what this month means to you or what this day symbolizes.
Thank you very much, moderator. And let me greet my fellow panelists and the attendees that have joined us in today's session. My name is Karabo Mhale. I am a development economist, currently serving as the Executive Deputy Chairperson of the National Youth Development Agency, responsible in the main for investments and special projects. And I think one of the biggest things for us, especially when we're thinking about Youth Month, is how do we drive uninterrupted attention towards youth development priorities in South Africa? What is it that we can be able to do to try and change and turn the corner? You would know that the unemployment rate amongst young people is exponentially high. Stats say it would advise us that in the previous quarter it was sitting around 46.1%, and that is not even the expanded definition. And if you are to be ambitious with the numbers and you want to expand it, you're going to be looking at almost 2/3 of young South Africans who have got potential, who've got ingenuity, who've got a teachable spirit, who can be able to meaningfully contribute to the development trajectory of South Africa, being really in the periphery of economic activity. And I think this month for me means exactly that to me as a young person, but to the majority of young South Africans who are sitting idle in the streets of South Africa, sitting idle in the corners of South Africa, not knowing what tomorrow might bring. And I think for us, really, this month is about a call to action to each and every single individual, to each and every government, private stakeholder that is there to say, we need to be able to band together. We need to be able to be strategic in how we respond to the challenges that young people face, but also in that quest towards changing the realities of young people is how we really put impetus, It's a moment for us to be able to say the challenges that young people are facing are far insurmountable. And us recognizing that is us understanding that a doomed youth is a doomed future for South Africa, because these are the young people that need to be able to pull the levers of the economy. They need to be able to build a sustainable country for future generations. And if we're unable to tap into their talents, tap into their potential ingenuity, we would have failed ourselves as a people, and would have failed the people of South Africa. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make a contribution to today's session.
Thank you very, very much, Karabo, for your contribution as well. Bafedile?
Bafedile is here. I'm Bafedile from Moses Kotane Local Municipality. I'm dealing with integrated development planning, where we engage various stakeholders, doing community consultations, data collection, ensuring that whatever programs that we put in place are credible for the sustainable coordination of a credible IDP document. Since we are in a highly regulated institution, my plea and my intention towards this celebration, I just want to see supportive policies towards our youth, stronger infrastructure of which we need to provide sustainable service delivery towards our communities, and access to finance. That's what is critical, because we need inclusion of youth mostly in our programs. Another thing that needs to happen is just to say this inclusion of youth needs to happen now, today, and not yesterday, but it needs to happen as soon as now, because this inclusion of youth will ensure that we are having smart branding, we are doing new businesses with them, we are able to do mentorship with them, because we know that through them, we will be able to work together across the borders and ensure that all the sectors and everyone, we collaborate to ensure that their inclusion, even from the council sittings, they partake to ensure that we are mentoring them throughout all these processes of council sittings, from national, provincial to the district, local municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Bafedile. Lorraine, can you kindly just introduce yourself to us? And as a young Black woman, what does it Youth Day mean to you?
Thank you very much, moderator, and good afternoon to my fellow panelists, as well as everyone who's on this call. My name is Lorraine Mukubiani, and I am the Regional Director in the City of Tshwane, and my responsibility is community services. So what I do is the maintenance of public open spaces, as well as public facilities, such as sports and recreation facilities, library, and the likes. For me, Youth Month reminds us of the people whose future this country really belongs to, who are really the architects of our tomorrow. So it says to us that every policy that we put down, every decision or even indecision that we make as leaders in government and in the private sector, it affects this very youth that we are talking about today and this month. But to also remind us that it is not about Youth Month particularly, but it's about engaging and making sure that there is open dialogue and participation of the youth in all the things that we do, because our actions and our inactions will directly impact them in their future. So I'm hoping that when we leave this session today, the youth will understand how is it that they do participate in government and in local government in particular. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorraine. And you speak of public participation, I think, of the youth and at the youth inclusion. Maybe can I try and bring you, Doug? Can you kindly introduce yourself, Doug, and also maybe just highlight to us what are the issues that are preventing young people in being involved in governance and also in with regards to public participation as a whole?
Right. Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon to all colleagues on the panel and everyone online. My name is Tsapang Musia. I'm the Chief Director for Innovation for Inclusive Development in the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation. I run a portfolio that supports youth entrepreneurs and also youth innovators. I run a big program called Grassroots Innovation Program. And this is where we look at alternatives and ways of using innovation to ensure that there is youth inclusion, especially in economic opportunities. I also run programs that support municipalities with technology for basic service delivery. And another related program that I'm running is on e-participation and policy modeling. So this is a very interesting discussion, Kanyiso. But looking at the theme of the event, it is quite packed because you want to reflect on about 4 very important topics. I think one is around governance. The other one is about public participation of youth in local government. We all know the challenges that local government is facing. And then the other one is participation. You know, participation is a big, challenge, is a big topic on its own. But I'm delighted to be here. What this day really means to me is about recognizing that the world is going through a very deep transition. So there's deep transition, and South Africa is not excluded from such a transition. What also this month means to me, it is about transformation, it's about innovation, it's about finding alternatives, it's about inclusion, and also ensuring that we are able to use policies that are directed. We need to have directionality so that the policies are targeted, and they are targeting the very same social ills such as unemployment, poverty, and inequality. So I'm very, very delighted to be part of the discussion. So also having studied at Regenesys, it's an opportunity for me to come and discuss some of these things, and I really appreciate that. Now, on the question you're asking, yeah, okay.
I know you can continue. I was just saying thank you. You can continue, but quickly summarize it for us if you can.
So participation is a big problem. I think if you look at it from the constitutional perspective or acts like Municipal Systems Act, Municipal Structures Act, our South African approach to participation, I think, took a slightly different direction because we talk more about citizen youth consultation, whereas there's a difference between consultation and engagement. So we need to be able to find that distinction. And there's misconceptions as well about public participation, because if you engage citizens and if you consult citizens, those are 2 different processes with 2 different outcomes. And there's a whole range of misconceptions around when you ask for opinions or when you engage citizens to ask for their opinions, either through written submissions or either through a survey of sort. That is not engagement. That's not deliberation. That's not dialoguing. So I think that's where we've got some very difficult challenges. We need to shift from that direction and be able to recognize that citizens and the youth, they've got experiences, they've got skills, they've got knowledge that they can bring into a policy formulation process. So consulting them really does not result in, consulting them through surveys does not result in their opinions being taken through policy processes or their opinions being embedded in policy processes. So we need to shift towards a deliberative democracy and finding most innovative ways of creating dialogues in policy with youth. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. I think those conversations are important, as you say, and this is why we need to have more sessions like this. Tamsang, welcome, sir. Can you just kindly unmute and then introduce yourself? And just one question I wanted to ask you as well, being part of Parliament, can the inclusion of more young leaders in Parliament change the culture of governance in South Africa? And I speak of culture because lately we've just been seeing what has been happening with the portfolio committee, looking at the Department of Higher Education, and they're so involved with the youth. Can you just highlight that for us?
Thank you very much. My name is Tamsang Mabena, and good afternoon to our fellow panelists. And I think we've got a fantastic, great panel that you've assembled here, professionals and also people that have, listening earlier, the thoughts that were just going around. You could see that we're going to have quite a great, engaging conversation. As I said, my name is Tamsang. I Unfortunately, I didn't study at Regenesys. I'm an Orange Army alumni, University of Johannesburg all the way, JBS, Johannesburg Business School. But it's great to engage with Regenesys in this webinar. I think what is critical on the question that you asked first, what does Youth Day or Youth Month means to us, or in the manner that you have posed the question? I think it also speaks to issues of resilience, determination. I think the heroics of the youth of 1976 has proven once more, because there has been over the years some sort of a misconception that young people don't care, young people are immobilized, young people are not mobilized in a way, and that young people generally, when they don't take part in meaningful engagements coming either from government or from the legislative processes. But I think the heroics of 1976 proved to us that an idea can spark and that young people will rally behind an idea that is fair and just. So I think with all of that, it should also inspire us, because I don't think that we would have had the opportunities that we have now to be in the National Assembly and to be participating in the governance of our country, but also from a legislative point of view, because Parliament, as you know, has got just an oversight role. So we've got obviously the separation of powers in terms of the executive, and then you've got us in the National Assembly, which we deal with the oversight role, and then you've got also the judiciary there in terms of the three arms of state. But then the question that you were asking, the big challenge that we have now with the participation of young people in, maybe let me tackle it the way that you've asked, in Parliament. That is a result of a political process. So meaning that young people should involve themselves with political parties. Unfortunately, in South Africa, you only have, it's until the 2024 until the 2024 national and provincial elections, because there was a court case which was done at the Electoral Court and also went all the way to the Constitutional Court, which for the first time in our national and provincial elections, they allowed independent candidates, where as a candidate, as Kanyiso, you can run for Parliament, but then you need to meet a set of requirements. You need to get about a number of signatures for you to make it onto the ballot, but we never had that. So meaning that anyone that has an idea, anyone that believes that they've got ideas that needs to be processed at the level of Parliament, you don't only have an opportunity to do that through going through a political party system. But what we also realize is that within the political party system as well, there is quite a lot of, there's not much, if I can put it, there are no systems in place that encourage youth to come in through that pipeline. Where now, the Parliament has got 400 members in the National Assembly, but the fraction of those are young people. And young people, in the definition of anyone that is under the age of 35. But what we've seen as well is that young people are energetic. Young people are as I said, energetic, they're innovative, but also young people are persistent. And also the generation of our young people now were more interested in acquiring more knowledge to empower ourselves, so that when we get to those spaces, we also make a meaningful contribution, so that we can, one, hold the executive to account if we're speaking about the issues of the National Assembly. And as you've also pointed out, that in the Education Portfolio Committee, where they're dealing with the issues of the SITA boards, or is it with the National Youth Development Agency? So where young people are, they tend to be much more energetic, and they tend to be asking the right questions because of of the background where they come from, but also for resilience as well, and so that we can leave this country in a better shape than we found it, and so that it can be inherited by future generations in a better shape than we found it. We need to involve, or we need to make systems available for young people to actually put their hand up. But just in summary, on your question, you can come to Parliament through being a candidate, as an independent candidate, or you can go through the political party system.
Thank you very much, Thamsanqa. Good afternoon, Tsepo.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Kindly introduce yourself to us, just tell us more about yourself, and also what are your views on digital activism, which is a new trend that is happening within our countries, and which is much more different to how activism was in 1996. Can you just give us an idea on that?
Okay, I am Tsepo Brent from Africa Tikkun. I am the program lead for the Child and Youth Development Program. And at Africa Tikkun, we've got a cradle to career model, which essentially means that to really get an impactful outcome, you have to track an individual from early childhood development right to the years where they would be registered at a school. And once they go to either a post-grade 9, once they get their grade 9 and move to post-grade 9 opportunities, or they transition from post-matric to post-matric opportunities, what then happens? We also have within the organization a department that then deals with work readiness programs, apprentice, placing kids in host sites where they will then accumulate work experience, and also an alumni network. So in a nutshell, a cradle to career basically says from the time a child is registered into early childhood development, our program is called Bambanani, right through to the time they obtain either their grade 9 or grade 12 matric certificate. What then happens, and what support do they get? Just to touch on the question that you asked about digital activism. Digital activism is crucial. It's just a pity that it's being given attention now. I think it should have been given attention from the onset. Just to take you back, some of the experiences that we would witness is that digital activism is all about access. And access obviously is an opportunity. And the first thing we need to really master and understand is that if you've got access without the necessary support, that does not equate to an opportunity. A lot of people would open doors or put digital platforms in front of people, but if they don't give them or put together mechanisms in structure for youth, specifically young people, to make use of, then we cannot necessarily call it an opportunity. The conversation of digital activism is one that needs youth at the forefront. I think the issue that we sit with is that firstly, we need to understand that people support what they've helped create. So we need young people at the forefront to have a seat pulled at the table for them to join that conversation from inception, not at the end, because then we move into crisis management. Typical example are children who come from rural schools, who would then transition into university. They expected to give online submissions, but a child who's seen a computer but hasn't been trained on it due to the lack of infrastructure at school means that they are disadvantaged. That's why you'd see that universities, when they do their gap reports, they would submit a gap report saying that there are kids that are still doing hard copy submissions. So the issue of digital activism speaks not only to youth that are in the employment pool who need to set up LinkedIn accounts, know how to make use of LinkedIn accounts, know how to make use of the platforms that are available, like the doctor mentioned earlier, platforms for surveys, for questionnaires, for youth to meaningfully participate. But they can only participate if that infrastructure is made available to where they are, which is by and large in rural areas where data is at a cost. It's not free data in those communities. So I think digital activism need it needs to go at grassroots to the people who would love to partake in it, but don't have the funding or the structure, the actual ecosystem that's been built for them to partake in. It's really not conducive. The conversation of free data is another activism that's embedded within the conversation on digital activism. And I think for us to really master this, we need to, within our ecosystem, build the infrastructure, give access, alongside the access, provide the support for them to meaningfully partake in this, because it's pointless calling ourselves 4AR when there is a huge pool of people who live in rural areas, who live in rural areas who are then left behind simply because the infrastructure doesn't stem as far back as those remote areas for them to partake in. How then, it's almost like we've built an ecosystem for the child who's had a straight line trajectory and missed the whole point of those that have been left behind.
Thank you very much, sir. If I can, just to bring you in, Garabo, and you being part of the NYDA, South Africa is still sitting at around 46.1%, I think, with regards to unemployment. Do you think that the NYDA maybe has done enough, or what more can be done in trying to help young people? And just to bring in some context, we still see townships as concentration camps, in a sense that the young people are locked in townships. They do not know what is happening outside those townships. Those who are lucky can get access to universities and seek jobs in towns, but we still have some who are in rural areas, in terms of they do not know how to step out of that rural area, how to get a job, or how to get into university and all of those things. So what more can be done, and are we moving on the right track?
Thank you very much for the question. It's always a difficult one to answer, especially because I'm from the NYDA, and you don't want to sound you don't want to sound too defensive about the institution, but we always argue that, you know, the NYDA as a development agency specifically for young people should not be seen as the panacea of all challenges that young people face. And that with that we're saying that challenges of development requires each and everybody to come on board. You make a very critical point about how young people are living in squalor, right? No, those are challenges that have to do with human settlements, but also thinking about the legacy of spatial development in terms of the past that we used to have, that Black people in the main were located in peripheral areas of economic activity and were denied access to land and to spaces that could be able to give them easier access to economic opportunities. So it is important for us to be able to reflect on the question of young people as citizens before they are even just young people, because the challenges that a young person faces when they reach 14 is a challenge that they would have faced from birth. So you don't suddenly start, you know, living in squalor or start living in poverty or start being challenged in terms of, you know, abject poverty, in terms of inequality. You are born into those situations. And some, of course, along the way, it's not always 100% the case, but some along the way, due to unforeseen circumstances, also find themselves in those poverty traps. But what is it that we can be able to do? I mean, the call has been always from our side that we need to be able to invest more in our manufacturing capacity as South Africa. I mean, the question and discussion around beneficiation in South Africa has become a broken record. When you're speaking about the fact that the minerals that we have in South Africa, actually, when you export it, you're exporting employment to other countries, because when they get that side, you know, there are factories that are created, you know, there are secondary and tertiary sectors that are created from the raw minerals that come from South Africa. So us investing in our manufacturing capacity is one of the areas that we can be able to look into. But secondly, one of the greatest things that we often overlook really is how we build an agile education system. And by agile, we mean you need to be able to create an education system that rapidly responds to the economy. I studied marketing as my undergraduate years, not too long ago, about 10 years ago. And at that time, we'd not even been introduced to digital marketing. You know, we're creating posters on Word, we're creating posters on PowerPoint. I mean, that's just a typical example of what we mean when we're saying agile. first world countries 10 years ago were already into Canva. Young people, they're already creating technological applications. I mean, they were the ones that were saying, okay, what is it that we can be able to do to fast track, whether it's the third or fourth industrial revolution. Now people are speaking about the fifth and sixth industrial revolution, and South Africans are still stuck with people that have not had uninterrupted access to electricity in a fast changing world. So I think one of the critical things that we need to be able to do is say, how do we ensure that we invest in the developmental capacity and of course invest in manufacturing capacity in South Africa so that we can be able to create more employment opportunities for young people, but also get young people into economic sectors that are very viable, looking into emerging markets, and say, how do we reskill young people so that they can continuously be ready to be absorbed in different sectors of the economy and the markets. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And you speak about the educational systems of the country and how they are making an impact on the youth. I remember when Thabo Mbeki was still president, people would have argued that we don't have enough skills into the right sectors. That has been a conversation for the longest time. But we still find ourselves in a situation where unemployment still is an issue. So if I couldn't bring you, Luncedo, since you're part of the South African Local Government Association, I just want to get an understanding from you. What is the problem? We often hear that maybe employment also for the young youth, government will say that it's not us as government who must create jobs, it's private sector who must create jobs for the youth. And then the private sector also argues that it cannot do enough. Government must create jobs for the youth. So who must save the youth here with regards to employability?
Thanks, Kanyeso. And I wanted to. I was triggered by something that Dr. Mosia said in relation to participation vis-a-vis being consulted, and I mean, I think he articulated himself quite well. And I just wanted to say, I think, you know, the involvement of communities in local government is constitutionally enshrined. It's not a favor that must be done to communities. And I say this because it's important to note that our brand of local government is developmental in nature. And what does that really mean? It means there can be no government or governance in local government without the communities that reside in that municipality. And I raise that because I think it's more critical for the youth, because as we know statistically, the youth make up a substantial percentage of our population, and therefore, if you lock the youth out of governance processes, what you are doing, it is not merely an issue of representation, but think about the innovation, the energy, just the youth dividend that you are locking out of a productive process of making sure that our municipalities are governed and are governed properly. And I think that it is important, therefore, to make that point that the youth, as any sector of society, are critical to ensuring that our spaces are governed in an accountable, in a way that produces results, and we are all able to share in the country's dividend. And I think that's important. I think the other part you raise, and I think it's important to also make the point that municipalities, as with any sphere of government, right, are at the center of policy making, right? Making sure that there is an environment that's conducive to ensuring either that development takes place in their localities or there is economic activity. And therefore, on that front, it is important for the youth to participate and make sure that they participate in all structures and platforms that are availed by the municipality to make sure that a conducive environment is created for business, entrepreneurship to thrive in their municipalities. I mean, and there's also another part that is never really visited. Municipalities themselves are major employers in South Africa, right? And what we've seen over time is that a lot of young people don't want to go and work in municipalities because of what the past of how municipalities are perceived, what has happened in some municipalities. And I think it's important to also make sure that we encourage the youth to see local government as an avenue where they can contribute professionally in order to make sure that we can change the fate of these municipalities. And I think that's important. Local government sits with almost 400,000 employees. And perhaps if we were to do an audit, how many of those are young people? And I think it's important to encourage young people to form part of the solution by seeing the local government sector as a sphere where they can make a contribution in order to change their lives and the lives of their communities. And I think that's important to highlight, Kanyiso. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me try and, speaking about local municipalities, let me try and bring you Bafadile and Lorraine afterwards. What could local municipalities be doing more in making sure that the youth is involved in good governance and the youth is employable?
Once more, I think we need to be accountable for these communities to trust us. One other thing is for us to be transparent with issues that are happening at local space. To say, as I said, we have a lot of red tapes, especially for communities who are residing in rural areas. Red tapes meaning everything that communities need to do, they need to do it digitally, of which they are far and the villages are very vast from where the municipalities operate. So for them to be benefiting from the local space, they need to be traveling plus or minus 20 kilometers from where they are, or 110 kilos in and out, just to come and buy a tender documents for them to tender and benefit for SMMEs development. So those are the challenges that we are facing at local space. We wish that the monies that the national and provinces are getting, they can be transferred at the local space, because that's where a lot of activities are happening. One other thing that I needed to check on was issues of awareness. We need to be having decks whereby issues of youth are being addressed, where we have youth forums in various clusters. Imagine if in Moses Kotane we are dealing with 107 rural areas governed by traditional areas, whereby we say in this vastness up until Tumulatedi to all the borders of Botswana, that's where we are bordered by all these borders around the Northwest where I'm operating. But imagine only one local space dealing with that. What are we saying? We must make awareness to this youth around South Africa, so that they must come to the space of local municipality to come and benefit. So for us not doing that, meaning people end up relying on mining houses. And then we are encountering issues of a lot of informal settlements because of a lot of mineral and the platinum belts that they are here in the Northwest. So those informal settlements requires us to provide more basic services for them. Unplanned informal settlements emerges because of people want to be nearer to their working spaces. Those are the challenges that we are facing on a daily basis. So it's a matter of collaboration. We need partners so that these communities, when the youth are included in from the planning phase, we must know needs of the youth. We are not supposed to be deciding on what the needs want. As much as we go to these communities, consult on issues of basic services. As we say, the municipality's objective is to provide basic services. Inclusion of youth will be saying, let's have a separate session whereby a forum where we consult the youth directly and ensuring that we get their need, so that as and when they are included in partaking under what committees, community development workers, we are able to understand what is it that they want, so that we are able to plan properly for them. That is why when I started, I said we need reforms, because we know that we are highly regulated. These reforms will open up doors for youth to come and partake in local space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Lorraine.
Okay, Thankman has a lot of bureaucracy, and accessibility for the youth is not as easy as it seems. And we need to make sure that we are more open, and also the jargon that we use in government, you find that it's not so accessible to understand what it is that we are talking about. So we need to try and make it more palatable or easy for our youth to understand. When I joined government, I never thought I would ever work for local government, because at that time I didn't even understand what local government does. At least now I think the youth got a bit of a more understanding of the role of local government. But we need to do more in terms of communication and education, and also to understand that should you be given an opportunity to work for local government, this is like a conglomeration of companies. You have a legal department, you have a water department, you have a built environment, you have law, it's like a big organization or a big company that has all different facets. So when you have an opportunity to come into local government, you should see that it is a space that you can be able to grow, to study and to grow into different spaces, into different industries that are all into one space. So you should see it as that. And I think what we need to do is that we need to start at school level, where we are opening up and we're having sessions, forums, where we speak with the young people to get them to understand what it is that local government does, but also to not look at governance or accountability to only be on one side, to say local government must do this, government must do this. The youth needs to understand that government is us. There's no one person that's government. Government is all of us. It's almost like it's a company that we all own, that we all contribute to. So whatever that we do on a day-to-day basis, we cannot turn a blind eye when we see someone vandalizing our electricity infrastructure as the youth or as the communities, because that is part of contributing to the sustainability of this government that has to see us through into our future. So I think our participation, the perception is that for you to participate in government, you have to be part of a political structure, or you must be in the youth part of a certain political party. That should not be. Anyone who is a member of this country should see themselves as part of the solution of improving local government. And I think because the youth sees that there's older people that are in the government, they don't see themselves, they don't see it as a space where they can contribute, but we really need it, because we need to keep up, we need to catch up, we need all those bright minds. We need to find spaces with the universities, with the schools. We need to get into having projects that the universities can do to help us to bring in, IT solutions that will help us to speed up our service delivery. So I think it becomes quite bureaucratic, that you don't see how is it that we can be involved. But I think we can do more. Certainly we can do more, because currently we have a youth office in social development. We also have our youth council, but I think we can do more in terms of starting our youth earlier and not waiting for them to be out of school. We should start there to try and attract them to come in and contribute in this space. And when they do come, all us old people must also embrace them and not be scared of the new things that they bring on board.
Thank you. So if I could bring you in, Doc, do you think our main issue, we have a skills problem? Maybe universities should take a different approach in the type of skills that they bring out to the youth, or is it a policy problem that we need to fix as a country? Because another thing with what unemployment does to the youth, it leads to mental illnesses. We see our societies in some of these municipalities that we are speaking of, a lot of children are going into drug abuse now because they cannot find employability. They do not have that pride of work that they can give out. So what needs to change? Is it a skills question? Is it something that has to look into policy? Or do we have to maybe have a different discussion of changing the personnel in these institutions that are supposed to be helping the youth?
Right. I think it is both. It is the skills and policy, but also it's about becoming innovative as a country and look for alternatives. You see, we can always cry and say inequality, we are the most unequal society in the world, but on the other side, that presents opportunities for us to find models of inclusion. So for me, I think we need to dig deeper, and we need to look at this from a theoretical lens, but also from what is emerging and what we are observing over the 30 years of democracy. What have we observed and what have we learned? So I'll illustrate this with some work, I think, around what you call a theory on desperation theory, looking at RTP houses, and so the issue of power, control, and knowledge. I will come to that just now. So Prof. Myeni and Prof. Mtapura, working on RTP houses and political economy in the South African context, what they are learning is that people are invited into spaces. So you don't just rock up and go there. Sometimes it's a space of invitation. They call it invited spaces. And also in their works, they talk about invented spaces. So invited spaces are spaces where you are given permission to participate. But in you being given permission to participate, that space is purified. So it means you cannot just rock up and say whatever you want. If you don't carry membership, you can't be in that particular space. It is an invited space. Invented spaces are spaces where people push their agenda. They push forward, they put their voice out there, they create a space for them to be included, to be heard. Maybe take, I think, a Soweto a parliament, I think, Dudula, people push and create and invent spaces because they want their voices to be heard. Whether purified spaces, invented or invited, who controls that space is very important. I can be in a meeting, I give my opinion, at the end, my opinion is not taken forward. So I am participating, but I'm excluded. So they talk about this concept as in participatory exclusion, which is very, very important. So that illustrates from a policy point of view, we need to think deeper. We need to question our assumptions 30 years ago, our assumptions now. We need to innovate approaches. We need to innovate public participation. In Europe, they talk about citizen panels. They talk about citizen assemblies. They talk about e-deliberations. I think another panelist was talking about digital platforms. Are we there yet? Are we going that direction? Should we be going that direction? So those are the kind of things we need to think about when we talk about policies. But on the other side, knowledge, control, and power. In a housing project I was involved in, self-housing, self-help project, we found that people with a higher level of education were taking advantage of a government program to support entrepreneurs because they understand, first, what that policy is. Second, they understand what the objectives are. They understand what are the desired outcomes for that program. Compared to someone with a lesser standard of education, they don't know. They will take anything given to them. They've got no choice. They just have to take. They can't question. They can't engage. So there's power, knowledge, and control and such dimensions within this whole discussion of participation. But moving away from that, I think as we discuss, there are three areas. It is economic opportunity and inclusion for the youth. It is their role on service delivery, innovation and service delivery. They've got a very clear role to play in there. And then it's policy making and decision making. So that's where the youth should be playing. Take the issue of food security in Soweto during the spaza shops not long ago, and take the issue of climate change and disasters in KwaZulu-Natal and how we should be mitigating. So government should not go and say, this is how you should be mitigating. Government should be harnessing citizen intelligence. People have got experience, people have got knowledge. So you can't come with a program and ignore people's knowledge and experiences, because such knowledge and experiences could help co-create solutions. Some are indigenous knowledge systems that can help us, but our approach to participation is about us saying, this is what the government is going to do, whether that is tokenism, real, citizen engagement, citizen power, or the issue of non-participation in the ladder of Arenstein. That's another discussion. But we need to really look at these policy issues, green transition, hydrogen energy, gender-based violence. Why can't we crack that? Because we're not harnessing people's intelligence. We're not harnessing citizens' youth intelligence on how government should address these things. Perhaps it is on our processes, it is on our tools, it is on the how of engaging citizens. Illegal foreigners, you find people who hold very good solutions, but how do we get there and get them to help us solve these things? But just very quickly, I think on inclusion, whether you look at inclusion, you have to look at exclusion. So young people are excluded because they're in townships, they're in rural areas, they've got no access. And access could sometimes be digital, or it could just be access to a basic service or internet or energy, or whatever the case is. And there's also exclusion from a gender perspective. Women and people with disabilities, they are not part of the mainstream economy. So when we discuss inclusion, we have to talk about exclusion and understand our context. International Monetary Fund says we are the most highly unequal society, but that could be an opportunity for South Africa to come up with models of solving this inequality. And as a department, we run a whole lot of programs that support youth inclusion in social entrepreneurship and technologies for people with disability, and also women in the green economy. So we really need to find a way for these programs to be part of the discourse. So which means policies, strategies, officials, we understand the agenda, we understand that which we need to do to achieve inclusivity. But again, there are areas where we could drive inclusion for youth to participate in the economy more successfully. If you look at renewable energy, we've got load shedding. That's a big catalytic area with opportunity for young people to participate. Also look at ride-hailing applications, Uber-like platforms. If we take the same kind of platforms and create ICT startups and SMMEs in those areas, we could create a critical mass of young people who get skills, who then start up new businesses, and even modernizing our existing economic sectors. Manufacturing, how do we use robotics and AI, and then bring in youth in there. They need future skills. And then also modernizing agriculture and tourism, because we're a country that's got good capability on tourism. How do you use AI in tourism? And how do you use AI in agriculture and manufacturing, and even new sources of growth, like circular economy, where there is reuse, there is no wastage. So all of such areas provide excellent opportunities for us to be able to drive the whole issue of inclusion. Same thing on service delivery, drones to monitor what you call land invasion. We are doing these things. I think Salga has partnered with us, but how do you scale up these kind of interventions? There's a young innovator here who has done something with plastics to be able to repair potholes, supported by TIA. It's a working IP, it's a working technology. How do we then scale these things up and let them be mainstream in municipalities? And also young people who can provide a service to a municipality will require a different way of looking at revenue in municipalities, because it will mean municipalities can get a service from a cohort of young people in a township. But will policies allow that? That's why we need to disrupt, to open up these regimes, and to support these new ways of thinking and use innovation to solve these problems.
Thank you very much, sir. Hey, you gave us a lot of information there. And hopefully this idea of potholes is something that's going to be implemented very, very quickly by this fellow that you just mentioned. Karabo, if I can come to you, I have two questions for you on the question and answer section. The first question says that what strategies or plans does government have regarding establishing businesses of young people or youth empowerment? Or do you just, in most cases, wait for the youth to come and approach you when they are for example, they are in need of funding and all of those things? Or do you have strategies yourself with regards to helping with funding, helping young people with businesses, and maybe even establishing or writing business plans and all of those things?
Thank you very much. Government has got different agencies that support young people who are into business. They can go to the Small Business Development Department. There's SEDA, SEDFA, I think now it has been merged, the Industrial Development Corporation. So there are quite a number of institutions and agencies that government has set up to assist citizens of South Africa, and that is inclusive of young people. Most of these institutions, I need to be able to put in record that they do go into different communities to source young people who would have had some form of initiative, and they then are able then to support the work that they're doing. But also there's also a lot of responsibility as well onto the young people that is placed by the government of South Africa to be able to source the information that they need to be able to upscale some of their businesses. But with the National Youth Development Agency, young people can be able to walk into all of our 40 plus branches that are across all 9 provinces. So if they need business management training, the institution is able to provide them with business management training. If they've got ideas and don't really know, how to bring them to life, the NYDA can also be able to support them with that type of initiatives. In terms of funding, the NYDA gives grants up to 250,000 Rand. That is what we call seed capital. And once you have stabilized your business and we can see that you're generating sufficient income, we're then able to hand you over to other different institutions such as the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller that is in the Gauteng province, and of course other development finance institutions that are already there and existing within the financial ecosystem. But I must also just mention as well that I think one of the biggest things that young people struggle with, and it's not all young people, the challenge that we have really is about financial management. When we give you money, whether it's R1 million, whether it's 500,000 Rand, sometimes because we don't give you the necessary support to be able to have a foundational framework for how you're going to be able to manage your finances within the business, we find that young people sometimes don't pay tax. That is a problem if you are a business person, and that of course has got adverse impacts on their record even when they go into the future to seek for even greater funding. So some of the challenges that have been picked up when we're engaging with young people that are in business is essentially around financial management system. And it's always advisable for young people who are into business, if they themselves do not have financial background or financial training, it's always advisable to have someone within the company that can be able to assist them with their book. So if you're going to go into a bank for a loan because you want to upscale, you want to open up different branches across South Africa, that type of financial system is important because banks would want to know if you have been able to, just pay your expenses, pay salaries effectively, you don't skip months, and sometimes you don't overspend or underspend. So that type of framework is important for businesses. But I think government systems are there, but we also encourage young people. I mean, we use ChatGPT for many things. We use them to cheat on our assignments. I can guarantee you that if you go in and type and say what funding is available for young businesses, youth-owned businesses, it will definitely all come up. Some of these things that I've said, and even beyond that. So it's important for us as well to take responsibility, because we will not run your business for you. We can only do so much, not only as government, but also as the private sector. So we need to be able to meet each other halfway as young people who are in businesses, and those, of course, that are in government. But we do definitely give support to youth-owned enterprises. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there is also another question here. It says, I would like to know, where do we get funding to start small businesses to medium-sized businesses? I'm still seen as a youth. I've looked at places where CETA, but what other opportunities are available for us so that we can empower ourselves rather than just wait for handouts. I think also maybe Tempo can assist with these questions. What programs do you have in your institutions that can help young people?
Hi, yeah. So we've got Africa Tikkun Services, which has on offer a work readiness program. So a work readiness program is more directed. So we've got specialized skills. For instance, we do training for people that want to branch into food security and nutrition, so an agricultural program. We have a program based, so basically the whole point of having work readiness program is that we've realized, and also similarly with people that want to branch into business, that it's not really just enough to give people seed capital. It's not enough to place youth into host sites. Have you done pre-training on salary management? Have you built the skill of resilience, of work etiquette to arrive on time so that you actually keep your job? We've got a lot of programs. You've got your EPWP, you've got your Youth Employment Service, which typically runs your job schools, which typically run for 12 months. But if we leave youth to enter those opportunities, what then happens at the end of 12 months once that work experience contract lapses? There's a big question mark. And this is where we come in, where before we place, we make sure that we cover all ground so that should that young person not finish that 12 months and not be absorbed permanently, then how do we help them set a LinkedIn account? How do we develop the skill for them to go back into the unemployment pool and effectively and impactfully job hunt by customizing their CVs and not just throwing out a blanket CV where job requirements and job specifications differ? For people that are looking to go into entrepreneurship, how do you put together a business proposal that you can go to a business banking division and then sit there? How do you sit through a panel where they invite you for an interview to talk through your business plan? How do you put together a SWOT analysis? How do you put together a risk analysis? All of this is then done at Africa Tikkun Services because we realize that you ticking at the box as soon as you say we're giving you money, or as soon as you do sponsorship in the absence of coaching and mentorship. The real test is a young person not only stepping into the door, but staying into that opportunity. A real meaningful job is one that is permanent, not giving a young person 12 months experience or giving them seed capital, leaving them to then bomb out and then the journey ends there. Impactfully, what you need to do is look at the trajectory of a young person who wants to go into entrepreneurship. Help them have a business plan. Have them have an execution plan. Have regular check-ins with them. Pair them with a coach, a business coach who started small, if it's a small or a medium enterprise, and make sure that they've got a go-to person who will help them sustain. Sustainability is a big component of this conversation. We want young people to not just be a youth that has an over-reliance on handouts. We need to do things in hand with and not for youth. And I think that's where the real conversation starts. There are a lot of, there's your Harambee institutions, there's your Africa Tikkun services. There's quite a number of NGOs as well within South Africa that offer services where they not only provide seed capital. There's your Kids Haven Youth Hub. There's a lot of institutions that not only provide seed capital, but provide the knowledge. Because at the end of the day, we need to move away from thinking of young people as problems to be solved, but actual solutions to the problems that we have. What I find interesting is that young people need to move away from being just knowledge consumers, but knowledge producers. If a person goes into business, they also have to write up how they stayed and how have they been resilient in staying the course of time and making sure that even when they broke even, they still fought to make sure that they recorded profit and not just decided to check out when it was difficult. So those are the critical things we need to really cover, to see them as not just knowledge consumers, but knowledge producers, so that we create a ripple effect that trickles down to those that even come after them, especially if they come from communities where they don't have a go-to person. Then they should role model that and be an accessible person who then even shares the opportunity to say, maybe Karabo at NYDA has an institution that offers the seed capital, but alongside that, as she's mentioned, there's also a business management info share that's available over and above just the seed capital that they can access to make sure that they tap into the knowledge of how to make their business thrive and be sustainable.
Yes, thank you very much. And speaking about all of these programs, maybe I can bring in some Sangha to the conversation. Speaking about all of these programs, your Africa to Canaan from all the NYDA, you find that it becomes costly also for a young South African to go out and look for a job. I need money to go and pay for a taxi that will take me through your NYDA. I need data that I need to pay for as well to have access to your what's this for getting into this internet sources and finding out about all of this information. So is maybe us having a conversation about the youth wage subsidy bill, is it going to help some of these young people going out there and looking for all of these programs that we're speaking about?
Look, thank you very much. But the other question is perhaps, let's look at it this way. Let's take this approach. I'll come back to your question now. If you look at municipalities' main role is service delivery, is basic service delivery. So that is bulk services. Bulk services have to be performed by people. So we need to, one, yes, we do have a professional civil service within municipalities, and that is quite important. But also another issue is this. Bulk services in the main, we're talking about water, refuse collection, electricity, and also roads. But also we need artisans in that sector. What we need to also encourage maybe from the universities and also FET colleges, we need to produce as many artisans as possible, need to get as many engineers as possible in terms of people that will deal with maintenance of water infrastructure, electricity, and all of those things. But if we are going to be in a situation where perhaps we produce in bulk a lot of professionals, because a fraction of the municipality workforce or employee, it's only is perhaps found in the offices, but the people that actually do the work are the people that come and collect your refuse on a day, on a weekly basis. People that you must call on if there's no power or if there's an issue with water. So we need to engage with quite a lot of FET colleges and also go to school, run programs that encourage young people to say that having a quality dignified job is not only you sitting in an office, but we need as many people as possible that can be in that space. Now, the issues of having a youth wage subsidy, what is it that young people are looking for? Young people are looking for a dignified job. Young people are looking for something that is sustainable, something that I can have, that I can be in a position where I can reach my full potential. So my take on that is that we need to also take into account the individual agents of young people. We need to make sure that we tap into their innovative spirit. But I don't believe that in us having legislation that speaks to just having a youth wage subsidy that we're going to achieve what we want to achieve. We must put forward legislation that encourages young people to compete and fight for jobs that are already in the market, ensuring that young people can be given, as colleagues have said here, a hand up instead of a hand out. If you were to ask any young person to say, do you want a job that pays you the bare minimum of what you can get as an entry level skill set into a job market? The answer is absolutely no. But we need to provide opportunities for young people to be absorbed into the system and make sure that those same young people get opportunities. For instance, one of the issues that we're dealing with now is low earth orbit satellite systems. What we are saying from, at least from the National Assembly side, we are saying that we need to diversify that space, where we say that international companies, especially investors that will come and give us foreign direct investment, are not only looking at giving up stakes into companies, but we're looking at equity equivalent empowerment schemes. We are speaking now about a situation where of young people who is in the remote area, someone who must go to town, who must go get tender documents, must go and do a CV and all of those things. But in a situation where if we can have a legislation that will allow LEOs from outside of our country to be able to come into the space and say, look, the equity equivalent scheme that we are speaking about of this particular legislation is that we've got young people who are interested into the technological space that want to be assisted in terms of them setting up businesses, but also be in a position where they can be given and empowered, given the skills for them to run ambassador of that without you actually giving up a stake in your company. So we need to look at the equity equivalent empowerment schemes that are there in terms of low Earth orbit satellite systems that we're trying to bring into the country.
Thank you very much, sir. I think looking at the time, we're about to close. Just any closing remarks from you, colleagues, on how do we then move forward? If we can quickly just summarize for a minute on how we can then move forward as a country. Let me start maybe with you, Bafadile.
For us as a municipality going forward, we have just started with the inclusion of youth by having a youth desk, because of that's what we never had in the office. So we will start by doing the awareness in various communities so that they are aware that they need to partake in municipal programs, and also their inclusion, that they must participate every time in the processes of government. As and when we do public participation, we will ensure that we engage with them. We call them to come and participate as we do the IDP consultations, because we go to them to traditional leaders. We engage the mining houses so that in their stakeholder forum that we used to have, at least we must have participation of youth with a quota maybe of the review of policies and legislation within the municipalities. As said that we are highly regulated, we will have to request the council to develop some policies that ensures that it caters for the youth within our council sittings, taking them from the high schools, the TVET, up until to where we say now we are having mentors, because we know we had a support through the partnership with a lot of various mines around here. We have developed a long-term strategy of 30 years, unlike relying on a 5-year plan, whereby that plan will assist us as and when we develop the 30-year plan. We take the youth along with us, the SPLUMA and all that. We will be able to move along with our users and when we implement our 30-year plan. So that's what we are saying from our side. Thank you.
I think you're all mute, Kanyisa. You are still on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Luncedo, any closing remarks from you, sir?
Thanks, Kanye. So I think perhaps as a parting shot from my side, I would just like to bring to the attention of everyone here that local government is going through a review of the white paper, right? And you and colleagues would know the first generation of local government was conceived in a white paper that was developed in 1998. Whilst a lot of strides have been made in local government over time, I think there have been systemic failures in and that require a review of local government. And I think it is an important opportunity for young people to participate in that process, to reimagine local government so that their voices are heard, and the local government, the second generation of local government in South Africa that is to be ushered in, reflects their views, their aspirations, and their hopes for the future. Thanks, Kanyuso.
Thank you very much, Luncedo. Lorraine.
I would like to encourage the youth to really be forthcoming. We can create all these forums, all the youth councils, the youth office that I said we already have, but we really need them to also, come through to government. We are open. We want to listen. We want to improve our services to our people. Also be that mouthpiece, if there's anything that is in your community that you feel that we need to attend to, it's really open. You can petition any department. If you're not getting the services, you don't have to wait for a council meeting or anything like that. Please do participate in our planning and our budgeting through the IDP process. We have participation sessions every year, so please do participate and make your voice heard. We want to listen, and we also want you to come up with ideas that you help us and new technologies to improve our service delivery. See this as also an opportunity for you to work with us within the municipality so that we can really sustain this engine that has to see all future generations through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will also do our part in trying to encourage the youth of Regenesys and being involved in some of your programs that you have shared with us today. If possible, I would encourage that everyone maybe from our panel, just send us information about what you do and how you can help the youth, so that even after this session, we can send out all this information to those who might need it, whether it's the NYDA or whether it's Africa Tikan or any programs that you might have that can help the youth with employment. That would very be grateful. We'll be very grateful for that. Thank you very much. Doc, let me hand over to you.
Well, I think in conclusion, for me, if job creation and inclusive growth is #1 aspiration for the country, to support youth and to create employment, if that is our aspiration, innovation must be at the heart of such efforts. I think we can only find a way around this through innovation, and we must also open up our policy regimes, even innovate our policies themselves, and look at output from TVET colleges versus that which is skills required by industry and by market, and be able to drive IP, product development and commercialization of products by the youth rather than the youth looking for employment. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thamsanqa?
Oh, thank you very much, my brother. And thank you very much for organizing the session. I think it was very informative, very engaging as well. And thank you for the invite. But I think maybe one other thing that perhaps is still a challenge, the fact that in a remote rural community, an internet cafe is still a valid and a viable business. It speaks to the effect of the digital divide that we have in South Africa. Hence, we must accelerate and push on the issue of low Earth orbits and make sure that we push hard in terms of the equity equivalent empowerment schemes. But also, until recently, a smartphone in South Africa was classified as a luxury good. And we know that quite a number of people have, like in terms of access, people interact and interface with digital technology through a smartphone for a lot of people, and especially young people. So I think we're happy to report that we're pushing very hard to make sure that a smartphone, we remove that tax, that a smartphone that is under 3,000 rands, there's no longer a tax that is associated with that. That will ensure that quite a lot of young people will be able to buy those smartphones that are at that level without the of paying an exorbitant tax on it. But that will encourage access and improve access for a lot of young people, but also while we do that, we ensure that we bring people in within the economy using the digital space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Please also work on the data issues for our young people, because applying for a job requires that as well. And with regards to education for young people, they do need data to have access to information that we are speaking of. So hopefully in your committee, you'll be looking into that as well. Thank you. Yes, Karabo?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to just opine on some of the critical issues that young people face in South Africa. But I think my parting shot is really to say to young people that, you know, the path towards inclusive growth is them refusing to be excluded. As young people, we need to take up our space. It doesn't matter how we do it. There is nobody that is going to open the door for us and keep it open. We need to break that door down. And we've just realized that, you know, and I'm in government myself, the complacency sometimes that come from our side as government in terms of having some level of impetus towards resolving the challenges of young people is becoming more and more. And that's why you are seeing an increasing trajectory of high unemployment amongst young people. And I think for me, the call to action is to say, how do we ensure that we take our critical space in the economy and the echelons of the South African development trajectory? How do we do it from the comfort of our own spaces? We don't all need to travel to Gauteng or the Western Cape for us to be able to have access to opportunities. We need to be able to start creating opportunities for ourselves in our immediate communities, whether it is through farming, whether it is through innovation, whether it is through whatever means necessary. Young people need to be able to understand that the only way they can be able to participate in this economy, in the development trajectory of South Africa, is the day that they decide that they are going to refuse to be excluded. They're going to refuse to be excluded from critical spaces that take decisions for them. We always say as young people, nothing for us without us. And I think my call to action, especially this Youth Month, is to say exactly that. When we are saying nothing for us without us, what then becomes our role in asserting ourselves, in taking up the critical space that we need to take up as young people? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karabo. Tebo, your closing remarks, sir?
Sure. I think for me, it really boils down to creating an enabling environment for youth to partake in. It's no point having big policies, but these policies aren't necessarily meeting youth where they are. A typical example, you would have a youth in Bizo and a youth in Daba, and then it would be hosted at Sandton Convention Center. This is meant for the marginalized youth. How then do you expect them to even get to Sandton City, let alone know where Sandton Convention Center is? What we need to do is have, for instance, your data hotspots at rural, village, and remote areas, so that the youth that we expect to partake in the policy reviews and policy formations to then have access to the questionnaires, to the surveys, and even these places where conversations that concern them but have not actually created an enabling environment for them to actually form part of. For that piece of information to be sorted out, I think we need to respond to issues not in principle, but in specifics. Because if you engage in youth development without a youth voice, essentially you're answering the problem in principle, not in specifics, and hearing the granular detail of what it is they're struggling with. So I definitely think that we need to create an enabling environment, an inclusive environment, and have the people who are excluded to really come forward and say what it is that they are struggling with and not take a presumptive approach. I will close off with what had happened last year. During Youth Month, I had to accompany some of the youth cohorts to one of the Big Four firms. And one of the Big Four firms have an escalator to get to reception. The lady from Davidton got on that escalator but had no experience of an escalator, had not been on one in her entire life. The assumption was that she'd been on one. On her third step on it, fortunately there was somebody behind her, but she was on her way falling back, simply because we made an assumption that she knows what an escalator is. She must have been at a mall, but she hadn't. So it is, youth representation is not a nice to have, it is a must have. These people, youth representation needs to be, there should be a quota that's enforced for these conversations at policy level to have youth representation, so that issues of this sort, similarly to the one that I've just made mention of, can be curbed and not a story that's now told on a platform of this sort. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you to everyone who joined, from our panelists and to our attendees as well. I feel like it's critical for us to have these conversations and also to have them as uncomfortable as raw as they are, and express also the emotions of what is happening in our country. We need to simplify this problem that we have of youth unemployment. I think 46.1% is a scary statistic. Looking at it as it is. So I hope such conversations do not end with Regenesys. I hope you are able to have these conversations as well in your homes, in your institutions, and in your communities as well. As I said, also, if it is possible, please kindly share your information with us so that we can share it with anyone who might need it from our institution, because we have a lot of young people who are still studying at our institution, and I'm sure would like to know how to gain access to some of the programs that we were speaking of and some of the funding platforms that you guys have. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me from my side. I would like to thank you and wish you a blessed day. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you.
Never worked.
Yeah.
Recording stopped.